Shalom, it's Rabbi David Barron with my 5-minute Torah talk from here at our Temple of the Arts home, the beautiful Saban Theater in Beverly Hills. And we hope very soon you'll be joining us for live events. With the Omicron spread, we've had to kind of hold off. That's the bad news for the next couple of weeks. But the good news is that the early reports from England and South Africa seem to indicate that as virulent in terms of the spread, as rapid as the spread might be, the virulence is significantly less in the Omicron variant, and that recovery and plateau and eventual recovery seems to be happening faster. So ultimately, we're learning to live with this virus, because after all, it is a virus and it spreads throughout the world, and we have to protect those who are most at risk and allow our children to go back to school in safety, and all of us to return to our normal activity routine. So the message I want to give you today is one from the Torah reading. This is a special Sabbath. It's called Shabbat Shirah, the Sabbath of Song. The song that's referred to is the beautiful song contained in the Torah reading this Shabbat. It's the song of the Israelites at the splitting of the Reed Sea. Now, it's very interesting. A lot of people have for years talked about that miracle of the splitting of the waters and have commented that it seems just extremely unrealistic. But, you know, something very interesting was discovered not that long ago, that some of the stones that are found in the Nile River Delta and in that region were from the island of Santorini in Greece, because the island of Santorini was a large volcano, and around the time of the Exodus, it exploded, massive explosion, creating a huge tsunami, which actually brought rocks and stones from that volcano into the Nile River Delta. It crossed the Mediterranean. And if that occurred around that time, we know what happens in a tsunami. The waters recede very intensely and quickly and then return. And that perhaps could be a scientific explanation of these events. But what would be missing in that explanation is the question of timing. And timing is always the critical issue in a miracle, in things that unfold in our lives when what do we say? We're in the right place at the right time, or we make the right move at exactly the right moment. And that was what occurred when the Israelites were massed at the shores of the Red Sea, and the army of the Egyptians was in hot pursuit. So we find that at that exact moment, what we had to do, what the Israelites had to do, was they had to adhere to faith, and yet they didn't have a faith that was strong enough yet. They had to banish uncertainty, and they weren't capable of doing that. And all of us in our lives have gone through experiences that were close calls, or what do we say? We dodged a bullet. We came through a set of circumstances where we could have been injured or killed, and yet somehow, miraculously, we survived. And we express our thankfulness in a moment, and that is the moment of exultation that the Israelites felt as they passed through those walls of water on both sides, through the dry land, and then to the other side. And the Egyptian hosts that were in hot pursuit, well, their chariots. And remember, the chariot for the ancient Egyptian was a symbol of military prowess and might. We might compare it to a most advanced stealth bomber in the U.S. Air Force today. It was the prime example of military superiority. Those chariots were mired in the mud and couldn't move, and ultimately the waters closed and the Egyptians were killed. We don't celebrate the death of the Egyptian army. We celebrate the deliverance of the children of Israel from that moment. And that is something that is instructive for all of us today. We're all going to go through experiences in life where we come through a close call. You know, Jewish tradition has a prayer for that. You've heard the expression, we've got an app for that. There seems to be an app for any activity you might ever consider indulging in. Well, there actually is a prayer for so many experiences in Jewish life. And the prayer is the prayer of deliverance, the Gomel prayer. We thank God for getting us through a tight squeeze, a tough situation, a close call with injury or death, God forbid. And the Israelites celebrated and exalted. And you know, it's so important for us to not let that moment pass, but to think about it, to dwell on it, to meditate on it, to see the lesson within it, and to celebrate our deliverance. And I feel that very strongly now with this horrible COVID experience that we've been suffering with for 2 years, the moment of deliverance is near. And we hope and pray it'll come sooner, and that all of our loved ones and dear ones who've had COVID and who have COVID will recover and return to us in the best of health. In the moment of banishing uncertainty, the Israelites had to proceed. Most of them didn't know how to swim. It took a great deal of bravery. In fact, there was one who led the charge, Nachshon. He headed into the waters with a sense of strong belief and faith in God's guidance and protection. And it always takes one leader to lead with the example and banish uncertainty, banish confusion, banish that sense of, will I get through this or not? Those are normal feelings that we all experience, but we can't allow them to dictate how we respond. We must respond from a place of faith and belief, and that will see us through in every one of life's circumstances. I hope we can take that lesson to heart on this Shabbat, and that it lifts our spirits and lifts us in every way imaginable. Shabbat Shalom.